Plays Volume 3. Features 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 scripts, 4 theatre scripts and 1 film script. The first is Somebody Up There Likes Us, which comes from 2001. Somebody Up There Likes Us came out of 3 days of workshops that took place between a French semi-professional theatre company and myself between the 10th and the 12th of September 2001. The remit was to work on ideas that help to build bridges between people from different nationalities. On the 11th of September, of course, destiny stepped in the shape of the infamous attack on the World Trade Center. Throughout 2001 and 2002, I worked on the script, and it took a number of attempts to finally settle on a vision that worked. I made contact in the UK with Spanish, Chinese and Urdu native speakers in an attempt to include the sounds and syllables of their languages, so that the magical chemical which the 2 border guards in the script drank in my play was taken to its ultimate conclusion. But that meant my audience would have had to have spoken or understood those languages to understand what was being said in the play. A golden rule for writing a play is that every word should contribute to the story, and anything that doesn't should be superfluous and therefore not written or said. That meant that key axes and focal points in the story could be lost because of misunderstanding or lack of comprehension. To cut a long story short, once all my analysis had been thought through, it became too complicated. So I let the project lie fallow for a year or two while I concentrated on other projects. I returned to it again with an experimental version that transformed the liquid potion into marijuana leaves. The 2 fractious and argumentative guards smoked it, and from that point on, not only could they speak to each other, but could also make each other laugh, which is another type of language, laughter. But the idea was abandoned as not being particularly original. For a long while, the first title was The Lingo Tree. It was in fact almost 5 years after that workshop that I settled on the version printed here, and I included some of my dad's memories in it, because he was a soldier in the Turkish-Greek Cypriot conflict in 1957. I'm particularly grateful to Paris-based actor Maya Bila, who helped me pad out this version with a reading and some additional notes in 2010. Then there is Le Pétoman, which came from 2002. This is a 2-act play based loosely on the life of Joseph Pujol, 1857 to 1945, who was born around Marseille in the south of France and retired there. In between, he performed under his stage name Le Pétoman at the turn of the 20th century around France, Europe, and of course in Paris. His hugely successful act was based on the natural bodily function of passing wind, or, to put it more plainly, farting. Jean Nohan and Frank Karadec wrote a slim biography of Pujol called simply Le Pétoman, and it was this slim volume that I used as the foundation, and I emphasize this word foundation, for my play. I was determined to find a way to talk about this taboo but often hilarious subject in a reasonably intelligent and entertaining way. I've never been certain if it's a comedy with some serious bits or a serious play with some funny bits. I stripped the play down to 4 actors, 3 men and a woman, with a large hamper basket of costumes and a few props in the manner of travelling troubadours of the period. Despite attempting for quite a long while to find backers, the subject matter seemed to scare most people away before they'd even read it, so as of this date it still remains unperformed, though it was workshopped with professional actors in Newcastle on the 3rd of February 2005, and again in Paris, in English, on the 1st of May 2011. I removed the last letter E from the original French title because English speakers would pronounce it as they would pronounce the word main, and I think it works better without the E, as in Superman. The next play is Pressure, which also was written in 2002. Pressure was written as a follow-up to the school's play My Brother Jake, that tracked the path of Jake, his relationship with his younger brother Mark, and one-parent family, mother, and his arrest for dealing controlled substances and subsequent sentencing to 2 years in a young offenders institute. It was designed for teenage audiences or schools exploring drugs issues. Released after 10 months for good behaviour, Pressure was a study of Jake's life after his release, and a look at how pressure from outside forces and from former friends who hadn't suffered as he'd suffered, or who hadn't learnt their lessons, continued to tempt him back to the very same path that caused his downfall in the first place. I wanted Pressure to stand independently from My Brother Jake, but still carry through certain references to the original, giving the follow-up the ability to stand alone for an audience that hadn't seen the original. I'm very fond of this follow-up as a dramatic piece because it relies on an inner world for the actor and character, a world of action rather than speech, extended character studies and silences in which outside interruptions and interferences create a menacing mood of the unknown. The pressure to cope with that is a challenge for the audience, which is a deliberate intention. This version was read by members of the Northern Line Theatre Company, my own company, in June 2001, but never performed as the company was dissolved 3 months later. And then finally, Like Riding a Bike, which was written in 2004. Like Riding a Bike is a full-length screenplay written over the spring of 2004, a productive year, as I also performed a new show for schools in French, wrote and directed One of the Lads at the Buddle North Wing in Tyne and Wear, visited Croatia and Sarajevo to undertake a sound recording exhibition, and to top it off, performed my one-man show Space Jockey in London for a month. Like Riding a Bike came out of an idea I had when teaching my stepson Lewis to ride a bike when we lived in Durham in 2001. He was 6 at the time. As I daily taught Lewis some new attribute associated with riding a bike, many old paternal feelings returned. I remembered how my own father had taught me to ride a bike when I was a kid, and I then realised how much of a two-way process that was, completing a cyclical loop. I was helped in the writing a great deal by Jorel Hallström, a Swedish filmmaker who freelanced for Northern Film and Media in Newcastle. The final product was sent off to the Children's Film and Television Foundation. The films they made entertained me hundreds of times when I was a kid. It was the custom in the 1970s for kids to pay 5p or 10p and go to the local picture house, mine was the ABC or the Odeon, every Saturday morning to watch series and films designed for young people. The closest my film got to being made was when I got a call from a CFTF director to tell me that out of the 200 films submitted to them that year, 2004, Like Riding a Bike had scraped in at a respectable number 4, but they only had enough money to make 3 films that year. So, on that basis, I think this finished script is the closest it could have got. I laid it out as I would a theatre script, with a character's name at the start of the line, followed by a colon, and then the words. VO means, of course, voiceover, an audible voice spoken by an unseen character over the filmed images. Int means internal, or a scene inside, and ext means external, or a scene outside. OS means off-screen, a voice belonging to a character as yet unseen in the same scene. Place 3.